Fundamentalism. What is it? What does it mean to be a fundamentalist? Those terms are often thrown around with contempt in our modern circles. It has become a sort of pejorative for an extremely religious person who is closed-minded, judgmental, uneducated, stuck up, and rude. Frankly, to be honest, for some in fundamentalism, those criticisms hit the mark. But this was not always the case. And fundamentalism at its core was not and need not be defined by these negative characteristics. And so, should we be proud of the label of fundamentalism, or should it be something that we're seeking to shed, to get rid of? All of those questions and much more. Let's talk about it.
America needs a tidal wave of the old-time religion. America needs to be taken down to God's bathhouse and the hose turned on her. And the time isn't far distant when the wheels of God's judgment are going to go sweeping through this old God-hating world.
I found out beyond the peradventure that there is a God, that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that the Bible is the Word of God. Today it's with me not a matter of mere probability or even of mere belief, but of absolute certainty.
Everybody who hears it is commanded to say, come. Did somebody tell you? You're commanded to tell others. You can't get out of this plain obligation.
Well, hello, my name is Jimmy Clark, and thank you for watching my meager attempt to contribute to the Christian YouTube circle. I understand that this topic of fundamentalism has a pretty narrow and specific audience, and so I don't expect this to blow up, but if you could share this with a friend or someone who you know might be interested in these types of conversations, I would truly appreciate that. And that would be a great help to what I'm trying to accomplish here. I don't really want to beat around the bush, so I'm going to give you my thesis right off the jump here and tell you pretty much what this video is about, pretty much what this entire channel is going to be about. And I'll put it up on the screen for you. And here it is. Even though the term comes with negative baggage and the movement is, at times, inconsistent and self-defeating, the historic spirit of fundamentalism, namely a tenacious contending for the truth of the Bible against liberalism and compromise, is worth recovering, maintaining, and promoting. Obviously, there's a reason why I have chosen to name this channel and this video in the way that I did. There is a group of people that would like to identify themselves as recovering fundamentalists. Please don't understand me. This is not an attack against them, or is it a commendation of them? And this is not a slight towards them, whoever them may be. I just honestly haven't really consumed much of their content, if any at all, in my life. So it is not an attack against them and is not meant to be taken personally by anybody. What I do mean, though, to do by playing off of that phrase is to suggest that we need not recover ourselves from fundamentalism, but rather we need to recover fundamentalism itself to restore it to its historical and its original context. Fundamentalism, in other words, needs reform from within, but it does not need to be tossed aside and maligned. I kind of have a threefold thesis, you might say, or maybe an outline into what I think fundamentalism needs to do. There are certain aspects of fundamentalism that are great and they should be retained. There are some aspects that modern fundamentalism has lost and we need to recover. And then there are some aspects that are nasty, unbiblical, and unprofitable and need to be released. So, in summary, there are things in fundamentalism, modern fundamentalism, that should be retained. There are certain things that should be recovered. And then there are certain things that should just be released and lost and shed. Now, before I can address what falls into each one of these categories, which surely is a very long discussion, I think it would be best to begin our conversation about fundamentalism by understanding the history of it, by understanding the development of it, the original meaning of what it meant to be a fundamentalist. History, as we know, is so important, and especially the history of ideas. Being able to track the history of the Christian church, and largely in America, but to be able to understand how one idea led to another idea, to be able to understand how one cultural movement spawned a certain ecclesial response, a certain response from the church. All of this stuff and seeing how it flows and connects is so important to understanding what we mean by fundamentalism today and historically. We have to understand how we got to where we are today. And we have to understand how history shapes our perspectives and our worldviews. And whether we recognize it or not, we are all influenced by the history of ideas, by philosophical ideas, by religious ideas, by political ideas. We all have a lens by which we see the world through. That's unavoidable. But he that is blind to his lens is a slave to it. And so it's important for us to step back and to understand the way we see the scriptures and the culture and the world around us is affected by this history of ideas and this history of perspectives. So as I study, and I'm not perfect, and I haven't studied everything, and I want to approach this with an attitude of humility and a posture of learning. But as I study, there are really four major streams that I think have influenced modern day fundamentalism. Most of them start in the 1800s and carry on through the 1900s there. But let me give them to you. They're four streams of thought, you might call them. Number one, revivalism and American evangelicalism. Now, a lot of these things are going to be tough to define because they're not a single, well-organized denomination or group of people. There's a lot of variety within these things. But revivalism and American evangelicalism is one extremely influential stream of thought, stream of influence that has kind of shaped our minds today. Next, dispensationalism and rapture theology. And again, as we go through these, please don't take this as an attack for or even a commendation of these things. Of course, I have my own personal views, and I won't shy away from expressing those things. But for right now, we're just trying to track how the history has unfolded. So second, dispensational and rapture theology has definitely had a huge influence on fundamentalism. Third, we have modernism and fundamentalism proper. I'll be able to define that in a little bit, but this is basically the fight against liberalism and against liberal theology inside of the institutions of higher education, the colleges and the universities, such things like that. Lastly, number four is higher criticism and Bible translation. There's a lot to unpack with that one as well, but even just mentioning these things, I think if you are interested in these conversations, you would see how these things have influenced the way you think about the world, the way your church designs their methodology, the way your church interacts with the world and the culture around it. So I will release a video for each one of these streams of thought, largely focused on just explaining the historical circumstances and the influences. Again, please don't misunderstand that and think that I'm attacking or supporting any of these. I do have a position, but that's not the main goal to start. If we enter into these discussions with our mind made up already about the topic, then we are unable to think critically about it. Honestly, each one of these streams has positive and negatives attached to it. So the point of the next few videos that I'll be releasing is not mainly to critique or to support. It's to learn. And it's to critically think about how these movements have impacted and influenced the way that we currently think. And sometimes that impact and influence could be positive, and sometimes it could be negative. And so as we go through, I think you'll see how these various ideas contribute to your own personal outlook on life and Christianity. Now, this is probably not the flashiest or the most clickbaity way to begin a channel, to begin a video series, but I do think it is the intellectually honest way to do it. And again, disclaimer, I'm no professional. I've put some time and some effort into studying these things and listening to podcasts and reading and doing my best to research, but I also want to learn about this as well. And so if you have any opinions or ways that I could improve, please feel free to share them. But that's it for today. I really just wanted to introduce my thesis, which again I'll restate is essentially that fundamentalism is a good movement. And it's a good movement that needs reform from within and not escape from. There are things that we have to retain, to keep on doing, things that we're doing good that we need to keep on doing. There are things that we've lost that we should recover. And then there are things that we should just release, we should just let go of. These are not worth fighting for. So, but before we discuss those things, we'll get into some history and just take an honest look at the good, the bad, the ugly of what has led to what we call fundamentalism today. Thanks again for watching, and like and subscribe if you're interested in doing stuff like that, and share it with your friends or with anyone who you think would be interested. And see you next time.